Alrighty, guys. So good morning. Today we are going to start our training sessions for 2021 with this very interesting topic, which is testing and assessment in EFL. Many of you might have seen this material already on your careers in the university, especially those of you who study to be a language teachers. However, it's a good idea to have it, like fresh in order to apply this material to our daily classes, okay? So without further introduction, let's begin. The idea is to see some concepts, some key concepts in assessment for professional development and learning, okay? Why? Well, because assessment has a central role within language learning and teaching. It is associated with the image of teachers posing as examiners, handing out tests to students who are struggling to complete their papers in time. Think about, for example, our IELTS sessions, where this is the role that we are taking with our students in terms of assessing. So while evaluation is clearly essential to determining our students' learning and knowledge, assessment is so much more than just testing. Assessment can provide a roadmap of learning that helps us grow as both language teachers and language learners. So when talking about professional development, assessment is essential. It can provide a level of self-awareness through the reflective mindset necessary to become the best teachers we can possibly be. Okay, so today we are going to talk about professional development through assessment as well. So in this session, we will see an overview of assessment and its roles within teaching and learning. We will then consider the use of assessment as a tool for professional development and the importance of a reflective mindset through critical reflection. We will learn about the benefits of assessment as a form of experiential learning as a teacher through action research. Okay? So we're going to see the objectives that we are going to try to meet during this session. Can anybody help me reading the objectives, please? Any volunteer? Nico?
Okay, yep. So objectives. Number one, broadly define assessment as a tool for measuring and enabling learning. Number two, reflect on the ramifications that assessment can have on our lives as language learners and teachers. Three, recognize the benefits of assessment within professional development. Four, encourage the different tools of professional development into our teaching practice. Incorporate, I'm sorry. Incorporate the different tools of professional development into our teaching practice.
Very good. So in order to begin, we need to determine what is assessment and what is not. So the purpose of this next section is to offer a glimpse into the main issues surrounding assessment. So please analyze the following quote, okay? Tatiana Varela, can you please help me reading this quote?
Sure. It says, as educators, we need to be conscious of the ramifications of the assessments we set our students, which are far wider reaching than merely grading with a pass or fail, and B or a D, or a 7 or a 4 to a student because they answered a few questions on a test correctly or incorrectly.
So if you analyze this phrase, you will realize that unfortunately, it often reflects the reality in our classrooms. So are the language assessment we use really effective at determining how well students can understand or use the language? Can language be measured by accuracy or by meaning? What factors may affect this measurement? So there are no clear answers or easy answers to these questions, but we will try to answer them all, okay? So historically, language tests have believed that language can be measured as a tape measure, can measure physical objects. Assessment has been used to measure the abstract nature of language learning, as we can see in this quote. Daniel, can you please help me out reading this quote?
Sure. Sorry. Language teaching inherited the belief that language proficiency, like general intelligence, was a single underlying mental factor, and that therefore the measurement of language tests was essentially the same process as the measurement of length by a tape measure or temperature by a thermometer. Underhill, 1987.
So guys, do you think language proficiency can be measured in this way? Maybe you can raise your hands on the tool so that I can give you the word. I don't see any hands up. Is anybody raising their hands? Maybe
Okay,
I'm looking at the wrong place.
I'm looking for the function, but I can't find it.
Yeah, me too. I was looking for the. Oh, it's here, right?
Okay, Daniel.
I found it. But I think that it all depends on what you want to measure. Um, because I believe that some aspects of communication can be measured like this, but of course others are not going to be possible to be um, considered in the same way as, for example, if you're assessing listening, for example. Yeah, it's possible to have probably a scale as IELTS does, in which they're going to say, okay, well, your level of comprehension is this based on the number of correct answers that you got. But listening, it's not only about getting correct answers, it's also about understanding a lot of aspects about what you're hearing. And it's also about understanding deeply or deeply understanding the message that the person is trying to transmit. So I think that it all depends on what you want to focus on. Of course, if you want to focus on accuracy, well, it's going to be possible to do it. But if your goal is to get your students to be able to, well, I mean, use their listening skills in order to um, understand deeply and to probably create something based on the information that they are getting, um, it's not going to be possible to do it like that.
Thank you, Daniel. Christian, do you have something to add to Daniel's comments?
Well, just like trying to tip a little bit, as international evaluator, when we try to assess either MET or CAT, those are the two exams that I have a little experience on. We have like a cheat sheet for the things that we have to look for if it is a speaking test. For example, we have if they completely understand what's the main idea of the question, because you may have a wonderful vocabulary, you may have like excellent grammar, but if you don't understand what's the idea behind the question, so you won't have the same grade at the end. So I think if we are trying to assess, even so in speaking, or I think more important is to know what we look for, what are we looking for.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, if we accept that language testing has not always been and not always is an effective measure of learning, this could affect how we consider using assessment with our students in the future. So, can you guys turn off the microphone? Thanks. Thank you. So consider the effects that assessment may have on the lives of the learnings being assessed. As a learner, teacher, and person, it can affect the university we go to, our career opportunities, and even the city or country we live in. So as teachers, therefore, we have a responsibility towards our learners to ensure we assess fairly and effectively. Okay, so we are going to see now, why do we assess? Well, frequently, as mentioned, testing is associated with measuring learning. This is called summative assessment. However, assessment is also fundamental to guiding learning, providing information for both the teacher to adapt instructions and the learners to understand the learning process. So I want you to analyze this quote. Chevy, can you please help us reading this quote on the screen?
Sure. If classroom and dynamic assessment is to play a transformative role in learning, language testing and assessment must be given a more prominent position in teacher training.
Very good. So what's your experience? What's your experience of assessment as a language learner? We all have been through the process of being a language learner. So what has been your experience when you have faced assessment in a foreign language? You can raise your hand if you want to comment. Elaine?
Okay.
Daniel, your hand is still up, so maybe you want to turn it off. Thanks.
Okay. As a foreigner language, sorry. The feeling is all the time that the teachers evaluate mostly grammar and the performance in grammar mostly, or vocab isolated. I think some teachers do not focus on comprehension or the proficiency as well. It's mostly about grammar and vocab. That was
Thank
my
you.
experience.
Anybody else? Jorge?
Calling my experience as a learner himself.
No se escucha.
Can you please speak up?
And I felt really frustrated when I thought my accomplishment of the lessons or the task was okay according to my knowledge and my English level and my standard, and it was a completely failure. It was a completely mess, and I have to review everything again once and once again. So you have to review every time, and you have to make sure you update every single minute and every hour your standard as a student in order to get complete knowledge of what you're doing and why are you doing so. So in the case of the students, I believe it's the same. Probably they think their answers are correct, they are doing their best, but we are probably expecting a different answer or a different reply. So you have to be really updating your standards and your executives and what things that you know in order to get things right.
Thank you, Jorge. Nico?
Okay, yeah. The thing with evaluations and assessment, right? We come from a very or students actually, we as learners and students come from a very traditional system in which they see the evaluation as the end. So what I try to do in the classes and in the experience is to let them know that evaluation is a tool, not the end of communication. The end of learning a language should be communication, to be able to communicate with other people in a formal or informal setting. So I always give them the example of taking different exams, right? For example, if you study for IELTS and you get a good grade, the next day you don't prepare and take another type of English examination, let's say a CAT, a PET. You will probably not be as good or have as a high level because tests are created differently and they evaluate different types of, or they have different criteria. They evaluate the same things basically, but they have different criteria. Christian was saying that for Cambridge examinations, they have a special criteria. If you look at the IELTS examinations, they have a different criteria. So I think it's important to let them know that and to understand that the assessment is important as a tool to check our level, but is not the end for the student, especially in language learning.
Thank you very much, Nico. All right, we'll move now to the concept of authentic assessment. And what is it? Okay. Here we have some questions. It says, I'm sorry. What is it and why use it? Okay. And so we are going to try to understand the importance of authentic assessment and also how is that linked to experiential learning. Ready? So we can make distinctions between how assessment takes place to whether we use formal performance assessment or authentic performance assessment. Let's take a look at the difference between these two. David, can you please help me out reading what is performance assessment?
Sure. Is where the students' work performance is evaluated and graded. This work may have been produced under test conditions, formal or not authentic.
Thank you very much. And
If you want
Tatiana,
to,
oh, yes, or David, you can read the other one too.
okay, authentic assessment assesses work that has taken place under conditions that were more reflective of real life, that were literally more authentic than contrived test conditions. Authentic assessment can also be performance assessment, as the resulting work performance is still graded. This is not necessarily the same as informal assessment, which tends to take place as teacher observation during the activity.
Very good. So in the next slide, we are going to work in pairs to analyze two different cases. And you have to tell me whether these cases are using performance assessment, authentic assessment, or both. So I recommend you maybe to take a screenshot of this slide so that you have it and you can analyze along with your partner what is the case. So please let me know once you're ready. Okay, has everybody taken the screenshot? Yes, good. All right. So here we have case one and case two. And once again, the question is which cases use performance assessment and which authentic? I need you guys to please help me out explaining me how to split rooms so that I can send you to different rooms. Where should I go? Anybody?
There should be an option down below on the, I mean, where the share screen, chat, participants, all the icons, there should be
Yep.
one called sección de grupos in Spanish, or breakout rooms. If it's not, then it's something that you have to set up on your account before,
Oh, okay.
you know,
Okay.
doing
So
this.
in this
However,
case, yep.
yeah, what you can do is you can set another person. Well, I don't know if that might work, but you could set another person as the host, and if they have the option enabled, probably, I don't know, it should work.
Okay, I have already set you as a host, Daniel. So please
Yeah,
let me know if you have the option or not.
no, I don't. I only have
Okay.
the.
I do have the option.
I think I have the option as well.
No, but I mean, well, let's go ahead and try. So let's make Chaveno.
Okay, yeah.
So Chaveno, do you
I'm
have the
trying
option?
now. It's not here.
It's
I'm
not
not seeing
there?
it.
Alrighty,
No.
don't worry. Wait, let's do something different. Maybe through WhatsApp call. Everybody please stay on mute. And let's divide you guys in pairs. Do you guys want to work by cities? Maybe by cities, so it's easier. You guys can call each other and analyze the answer to this question. Which causes use performance assessment and which authentic?
Okay.
Alrighty, guys. So let's check your answers. So here we have, are they performance assessment? Case one, yes. It requires the students to perform specific behaviors, the results of which are subsequently assessed. Case two, yes. It also requires the student to demonstrate their performance, although testing conditions have been removed. Now, are they authentic assessment? Case one, no, as the circumstances are contrived. Case two, yes. The students have freedom to determine the conditions the pieces were written in, which pieces to assess, and the context. Therefore, was more reflective of real life writing. Okay. So authentic assessment can be seen as part of a larger framework of experiential learning, where learning is aligned with situations students may encounter in real life. In this framework, link between education, work, and personal development are strengthened through learning. So in experiential learning, the learner takes an active role in their own education. This lends itself to the broader educational holistic goal orientation to learning approach. This shift moves from teaching to learning. Okay, so here we have a chart so we can analyze how we teach. If we teach, if we do language teaching as learner training, or if we do language teaching as learner education, we will see the difference between these two. So I need a volunteer for reading the column on the left side that it says language teaching as learner training. Anyone? Jorge?
Language teaching as learner training, goal orientation, narrow, specific, objective, situations, and tasks. Syllabus content, specific, clearly defined communicative skills, linguistic effectiveness, correct performance on limited tasks, learners working mainly alone. Teacher role, direct frontal teaching. Learners progress mainly at the same pace in the class. Emphasis on external performance testing by specific criteria.
Thank you. Now, who wants to help me out reading language teaching as learner education? Christian?
Okay. Goal orientation, broad communication and personal growth, broader syllables, communicating in new unpredictable contexts, personal efficacy in addition to communication skills, emphasis on risk, taking self-direction, learning to learn, and social skills. Teacher role, more indirect, individual guidance, negotiation, and contracts for learning tasks, external evaluation, self-assessment, and reflection of process.
Very good. Now, as we see, it's much more productive to have language teaching as learner education because it's more focused on real life skills in real life situation and also in improving the students' social skills. And is nothing to hide. We can notice that there are many aspects in our methodology in Jamestown that need to be swift from learner training to learner education. Why so? Well, because experiential learning is achieved by the learner by passing through these stages of action reflection, experience abstraction, and all of them are necessary to achieve experiential learning. Okay, so there is many things to reflect in how we are going to start swifting our methodology towards a more real life one. Now, talking about teacher development, in authentic assessment and experiential learning in professional development. This is another example of experiential learning, an authentic assessment that can be found with teacher assessment in their classroom, doing their daily job with their students. Analyzing our teaching performance can provide us with true insights that allow us to grow as educators. So as you can see here, we can separate these in two fields, a more traditional teacher development or a more authentic one. What is the traditional teacher development? It often stops after the end of formal education, and any further training takes place primarily at workshops, conferences, and maybe a consultant. What about authentic teacher development? Who wants to help me reading these items that we have here? Tatiana Ruiz?
So traditional teacher development often stops after the end of formal education. Any subsequent training takes place primarily at a series of workshops, conference, help of a long-term consultant. Authentic teacher development. In a school, continuous development enables teachers to develop an understanding of what to improve in our own practice, which leads to a growth mindset. Authentic assessments take place within a teacher's normal class timetable with their normal students doing everyday activities.
Very good. So talking about teacher development, which of these two reflects or best reflects your experience in terms of professional growth and teacher development? You can raise your hands if you want. Nico?
Yeah. Well, as a let's say non-traditional teacher, right? I for the ones who know, I haven't finished university. They make fun of me all the time. I would say that most of my experience and my progression as a teacher comes from actually teaching in a classroom, right? Uh, I know that theory is important and that we should all read and continue to learn about uh, uh, pedagogy and classical trainings. But as we know, also the world is changing faster than books. So I think it's very important to have a practical or a practicality in our methodologies. So to give you an example, when I first started teaching, uh, I had this concept that you should be over prepared for a class, right? And so generally as you start, you don't sleep, you worry, you have anxiety before teaching. And then you start to realize that students don't need for you to be over prepared. Students need you to be prepared to give them the opportunity to communicate. So your role as a teacher, again, in a language teaching, should be to promote for them to communicate, not for you to teach and to talk all the class. And of course, Celta drills this idea into your head like anything else I've done before. So that was a great experience in connecting uh, what I what I learned through experience with some theory and some actual classical training.
So you're saying that your experience comes mostly from authentic teacher development, right?
That would be correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else want to share their experience?
Well, once I heard that students don't come to your class to get information because they can get the information from the internet. Yes, they have many websites, and so they come to your class so you can teach them how to use or select this information. So in order to do that, you need to be an authentic teacher and not a traditional teacher, because a traditional teacher just starts talking about the information and the rules and everything, but uh, it doesn't teach how to apply this in real life. So I'm trying to change from traditional development to authentic. Yes, but I think I need more training.
Thank you, David. Yes, in fact, if you notice this phrase or this quote, it says, following the traditional view of staff development, workshops and conferences conducted outside the school are considered effective, but authentic opportunities to learn from and with colleagues inside the school are not. So sadly, these authentic opportunities are not given the importance they should. Uh, and in my opinion, they are far more, they bring far more benefits to our teaching staff than conferences or traditional training as we have seen it before. So authentic teacher development in school continuous development enables teachers to develop and understand of what to improve in their own practice, which leads to a growth mindset. So here we have the teacher's reflective mindset chart. And a reflective mindset is developed through a process called critical reflection. This is where a teacher analyzes their current teacher objectives in relation to the effectiveness of their current teaching practice and consider what changes they believe they should make. This includes examining one's current teaching practice, raising self-awareness on strengths and weaknesses, and enhancing understanding. So this chart, it might look confusing at first, but it's basically just analyzing where you are, receiving some knowledge mixed with your own experience, practice, reflect, and then that's going to produce professional competence, okay? So how can we develop a critical reflection mindset? Well, it can be a personal document where the teacher is honest and self-critical and ask themselves questions such as the following. What do I want to achieve in my classroom? What is my vision for my students? How can I help my students achieve that vision? How can I effectively incorporate vision into my classes? So these are important questions that you might ask yourselves and answer honestly about your own practice. If you want to see an example, we are not going to watch it today, but on the slides that I'm going to send you, you can watch this very interesting video where you can find out more about learning to reflect on our strengths and weaknesses in the classroom. So how can we carry out action research? Once again, this type of charts might seem a bit complicated, but they are not. The process of critical reflection can be developed through action research. Action research is basically a small scale research project carried out by teachers in their own classroom. So here is a model of reflective teaching with the different steps involved. And we can clearly see how it is inquiry-based and uses action research as a way to collect data and provide answers. So once again, it's basically just take a problem in the classroom, analyze the possible solutions based on your own knowledge and your partner's knowledge and information you can find outside the school, and then apply it, see the results, and start again. That will lead to the improvement of the systems in the schools and also to the self-improvement as teachers. Here's an example of action research taken to a classroom. Okay, so here the problem is discover whether current teaching approach is effective. And then you just have to answer simple questions such as the ones we have here. What they want to research, why they want to research it, who they want to research, where they want to research, when they want to research, and how they want to do it. Okay, so this can be applied to any of the problems or processes that you want to improve, either as coordinators or as teachers in your classes. Okay. All right, guys, here we have our exit slip. So please give me feedback. Take your pick. What you like or didn't like, what you learned or what was repeated, and what you will put into practice. Okay, and consider whether you have met the objectives of this lesson. So I'm all ears. Raise your hands, take a pick, and give me feedback.
Well,
Elaine?
first,
Sorry, Elaine had her hand raised.
Okay. What I pull into practice is as along my experience as a teacher, I think I have been in both sides, either the authentical teacher or the traditional one. And I think we here as coordinators, we need to help our teachers to get into this authentical teaching style to help students learn the language, not study the language, because traditional teachers usually focus on specific tasks that do not help students learn in an efficient way. So I think that's what we have to pull into practice. And also, I think we all have a bit of both, a bit of traditional and a bit of authentic. And I mean, in my case, we also need also to put that into practice to become more authentic day by day.
Thank you, Elaine. I saw Cheveno was raising his hand.
Yes, I'm going to pick what you liked and didn't like.
Okay.
I liked the whole presentation. I appreciate the information that was shared. It forces me to think a little bit more on my own process as a teacher. Um, I think I have a little bit of both when it comes to being authentic and being traditional. So I like that I'm forced to think about that, and I also like the part where when we spoke of assessment. Makes me think about all the institutes that I've taught in all the places I've actually worked in and how assessment has been done over the years. I've thought about myself when I was learning Spanish and French, how I was assessed. I look at my friends and my colleagues who learned with me and where they are now with respect to the language and where I am. And so I liked all of that. What I didn't like has nothing to do with the presentation per se, but it's more of a Jamestown thing. I feel like most of what is in the world, with respect to improving the classroom, goes against Jamestown because of how our system is structured. I think we 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 have classrooms of 50 minutes where we see students and we may not see them again until they go to the next book. So a student comes into Jamestown and they start they hit the ground running, and they learn the inductions, and within a week they're in the next book, and then they go on, and it's just so fast paced. I feel like the whole system is so structured that it doesn't um allow for this full authenticity that we want, this development of students over time, this development of teacher over time. I feel like it goes against Jamestown. So I think we would need to revisit our system and see how best we can apply these things to it if we want to achieve this authenticity in learner education.
Thank you very much for your great comments, Chevy. Anybody else? Some final thoughts?
Yeah,
Jorge?
I'll go with the what
Sorry,
you
David.
put into Jorge. Okay.
Yeah, it's just that they were raising their hands. Jorge?
Sorry, Alexis. As Elaine said, we have a little bit of both ways of teaching, but I presume it's because of the task of our um, actual duties. I mean, as coordinators, we have a different task already teaching to our teachers or whatever. We have a different task and a different orientation, more organizative. We are more, we have to structure. We have to take a little bit of our old skill of teaching and organizers. While as teachers, when we have the opportunity to have a class, we just take the knowledge that we are acquiring. We take the authentic part because we know the importance of that. But it's very difficult to mix up both. I mean, as coordinators and teachers, because we have different audiences, we have different students and teachers. So I believe the experience of authentic teaching is very important. As Seveno said, we cannot get frustrated because we cannot follow up the development of students because our objectives, our tasks, and our duties are a bit different to the mayor teachers in the town.
Thank you, Jorge. Alexis?
Well, I think that we need to also take into account the students' opinion about this, because with some students you try to be authentic and they just want to be traditional. They will tell you, no, let's just focus on the lesson in the book. Yes, I don't want to use different things. Well, if they are middle age with young students, they accept this. authentic things, but with the middle-aged students, then we need to find strategies to show them this is the new style, right? Or something like that. So that that's important as well.
Well, thank you very much, guys, for your comments. And I hope you liked the presentation, the first session. The idea is to have some material probably for 4 weeks. We are going to consider only assessment, so we get a better glimpse on this topic, and then we will move on to another one. So once again, thank you very much. Just give me a second here.